Welcome. This presentation, Mountain Lions, Elusive Yet Predictable, celebrates the amazing characteristics of this apex predator and keystone species and the positive impact it has on the landscapes it calls home.
Why mountain lions? Why have I chosen to spend time 3 times a week, 52 weeks a year studying this apex predator? Well, to start, I was face bumped by a mountain lion in the Never Summer Wilderness 14 years ago. I was bow hunting for elk, sleeping on a ridge about 1 o'clock in the afternoon to catch a nap. I needed to rest. And while I was laying there in the fetal position with my head on my arm, my left arm, a mountain lion saw me. I'm in camo clothes, so I just looked like a camo blob on the ridge. And the mountain lion came up from my backside, stuck his head over this high shoulder and pushed on my cheek like this with his muzzle. And I sat up, I had lion slobber on this cheek. He ran off behind me. I saw a flash of yellow and brown. I looked down and there was a track about 4 inches in diameter, so I knew it was a big male. And rather than being fearful, giving in to fear, I decided to lean in and learn everything that I possibly could about this apex predator.
Mountain lions, like starfish and sea otters, seem to be an obvious keystone species. But there are others. Honeybees are keystone species. Beavers are another keystone species, damming up waterways, allowing the aquifer to recharge, providing cold water and deeper water for a number of species, including fish. Few animals along a riparian area have more of an impact on the ecosystem than beavers. Sagebrush is another keystone species, helping to reduce erosion, providing cover for a number of animals, allowing other plant communities to get started. Sagebrush plays an enormous role. When I first started spending time in mountain lion country and noticed that this was some of the best habitat that I was seeing, I thought that mountain lions were attracted to this great habitat. And in part, that may be true. But now I understand, through a mountain lion being a keystone species, that they play an enormous role on creating this habitat by making sure that wild ungulates, deer, elk, moose, caribou, are not allowed to camp and hang out in the riparian areas. They keep these animals moving around, and that is why these areas where mountain lions exist, the riparian areas like this meadow, are just absolutely beautiful. Lush. The grass in this meadow is higher than my belly button. really fantastic habitat. And you'll see a real diversity of species. Where that bull in the foreground is getting a drink, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of birds use that water hole. Now, here's a mountain lion at the same water hole. This is in the winter. The mountain lion was licking water off the surface of the ice and then heard or smelled something. Here are some Merriam's turkeys at the same water hole. You can see that one on the left is on guard while the young are feeding and getting water. It's rare for a four-legged predator, a bobcat, fox, coyote, mountain lion, to get a turkey, because you have all those eyes and their eyesight is incredible. Here we have a bear at the same water hole. The same water hole where the bull elk was, the Merriam's turkeys, the mountain lion. Again, the diversity of species that I see in the areas where mountain lions are present is very high. Mountain lions create quality riparian habitat. The best wildlife habitat that we have in Colorado is typically along riparian zones. Streams, rivers, subsurface water that's close to the surface, allowing for green up. Deer, elk, and moose, the wild ungulates that we have, tend to focus on these areas. But without mountain lions present, these areas would be overgrazed. Fortunately, there are no cattle in this particular area. Black bears, they can consume, I would say, almost 10 times what a deer or an elk will consume in the same period of time. And now we have the king of the hill, the apex predator in the area, and keystone species. So this is a female mountain lion coming in to the same spring to get a drink. And those other animals giving the lion plenty of elbow room. Now this mule deer doe comes in. Look how nervous she is. This is what we want to see. There is a reason why the first 4 letters of wildlife are wild. The more wild we see in an ecosystem, the more imbalanced that ecosystem will be. The more wild, the healthier it is. When bears come out of the den in the spring, they eat an incredible amount of grass. As omnivores, over 70% of what a bear eats in the summertime is plant material, grass and forbs. You can see the sow and her 2 cubs just going to town on this grass. And this is some of the best grass because of all of the water here. So it's the most nutritious. But they won't hang out here very long. Why? Because there are mountain lions, a high density of mountain lions in this area. These bighorn sheep, taking advantage of this water source, the best water source in the valley, they will not hang out here very long. For the same reason the bears won't hang out long at that spring, because of the density of mountain lions in this area. This bull elk is urinating on the mud and then will roll in that mud, cover himself with that urine-soaked mud as part of the elk rut activity. This is just a fantastic example of wild being retained in wildlife. Something to celebrate. Here we have a red-tailed hawk coming in to that same water source where the bighorn sheep were. You see a lot of birds coming in here to get a drink, but also to bathe and make sure their feathers stay clean. So many species benefit from mountain lions being a keystone species. This is a northern pygmy owl with a deer mouse getting ready to share it with a female owl and her young in an aspen grove. Here we have a beautiful female lion. She's laying right on top of a deer carcass that she's been feeding on, protecting it. Oh, look at those facial markings. Just absolutely beautiful. Also notice that her ears, except one little nick on her right ear, they're smooth. Female lions do not get in fights very often. It's very unique, to get footage like this with cloud cover where the color is fantastic. Here is at night. She laid there for a long time. And she had kittens with her. There's one of the kittens, or juveniles. Here's the adult female feeding on the stomach of the mule deer. When they kill a deer or an elk, the first thing they eat are the internal organs, because those have the most nutrition. There are so many animals that are dependent on these carcasses. You see a magpie in the background, upper left, and on the ground there, and you got a bear coming in to finish off what the lion didn't eat.
Mountain lions, they are a cool animal for many reasons. First of all, they're an apex predator, one of the three that we have in the lower 48, along with grizzlies and wolves. Of the three, a mountain lion is the only obligate carnivore, meaning they can only eat meat. They can only digest meat. So what does that mean? Compared to a grizzly that's an omnivore, and a wolf that will also eat plant material. They'll eat berries, and just like a domestic dog will eat grass to calm its digestive tract, a wolf will do the same thing. So a mountain lion, being an obligate carnivore, means what? It has to kill everything that it eats. When the kittens or cubs are young, the mom, the adult female, is killing prey to feed her young after they're weaned. And once they get big enough to hunt on their own, they start off hunting small animals, mice, voles, wood rats, rabbits, Merriam's turkeys that we have around here. And then once they leave the litter, then they're going after mule deer primarily in Colorado. So mountain lions have to kill everything that they eat, and so they must have prey where they live. They cannot consume plant material, so they've got to follow herds of deer around in order to survive. A couple more cool things about mountain lions. Our jaw moves side to side, our lower jaw. Mountain lions does not. Their lower jaw is fixed, allowing them to exert great pressure. So imagine a deer's moving, a mountain lion's in midair, and its canines have to come down and sever the spinal column of that deer within 1/4 of an inch. I saw a couple years ago where a female lion, probably around 110 pounds, came over a fence on this hillside. The next 2 bounds in the snow were 16 feet apart, and then it jumped up onto the spine of a bull elk, sunk its canines into the spinal column. That elk only went 15 yards, went down, there was a death circle there, and then this lion takes this elk, which is probably close to 400 pounds, so you got a 110-pound lion, grabs the face of this, the head of this bull elk, and drags it down the fence line about 100 yards. That's amazing. They are well designed for what they do. Their back legs are longer than their front legs, allowing them to leap from a sitting position, leap up into a tree. They can leap as far as 16 feet from a sitting position. Unbelievable what these mountain lions are able to do. They have, as a percentage, they have more rods in their eyes than cones, allowing them to see really well during that transition time. So in the evening from light to dark, in the morning from dark to light, they can see better during that transition time than the prey that they're going after. Deer, elk, caribou, moose, they have an advantage. So they love to hunt during that transition time. It's obvious to me, based on the posture, after capturing dozens and dozens of lions on camera, it's obvious to me when they're hunting and when they aren't. When they're hunting, they're checking the wind constantly. If the wind is barely blowing, a lot of times they'll lick their nose. And that allows the scent particles of deer and elk, they're coming at the lion and they stick to that nose rather than being inhaled. Once they're inhaled, they can't smell that prey anymore. So by licking their nose, they're able to magnify the ability to smell the scent of prey. Last year I set up a camera here to catch what was going up and down this road. Of course, you know, hoping for predators, beginning with mountain lions. And I really didn't see this stump when I set up the camera. I wasn't thinking about it. I was just thinking about what was coming up and down this road. And then I came up to check the camera and I had all kinds of small animals sitting on this stump. Birds, chipmunks, squirrels, mice. Not what I was after. And it's a loose stump. I was going to kick it out of the way, and then I looked. Yes, Autumn. I looked right here, and there was a little bit of hair, like something like a bobcat or coyote. It looked like it had been rubbing on it. So I thought, well, I better just leave it. So a few days later, I had animals stop to rub on it, which you'll see. Right on it. That was a good idea. Yes. Here's a unique clip of an adult female lion rubbing on the tree there and one of her juvenile males. My friend Mike is walking across the hillside. He has no idea the lions are there. And once the juvenile sees Mike, it runs off. The adult female didn't see Mike because the tree was in the way. You can see Mike in the blue shirt up there on the hillside. The mountain lion running off is a typical response when human scent is in the air. One of the reasons these animals are so elusive.